We're back. It's the movie review, man. I'm Jeff Johnson, and this is
Claude Faitier.
Today we are reviewing One Night in Miami. Tell us about One Night in Miami, Claude.
Okay, One Night in Miami is a movie that was directed by Regina King, and it was written by Kemp Powers, who also did the screenplay for Soul. The setting for One Night in Miami, it's a fictional setup for a real event. The historical event being the fight night between Sonny Liston and Muhammad Ali. It's after the fight, and the story is a fictional gathering of friends where after the fight, Ali's supposed to meet with. He's not Muhammad Ali. He's Cassius Clay at that moment. He's supposed to meet with his friends Malcolm X, Jim Brown, at that time one of the legendary football players, and Sam Cooke, who is just an amazing singer who recently had #1 hit with "You Send Me," and it is amazing dynamo of just people who are titans in their own field one way or another, gathering to celebrate after Muhammad Ali's historic victory against Sonny Liston.
Yeah, and what's amazing to me is I remember it when it came out as a play. The screenplay by Kemp Powers, and again, you mentioned him. Kemp Powers also did the screenplay for Soul, which we've reviewed. You all can look down and check out a review of Soul. It's a screenplay based off of a theater production. And certainly when the four main characters are together, it's very dialogue driven and focused intensely on their relationships, their communications with each other, and it feels like a stage play. But however, unlike some of the other films that we reviewed recently they're based on plays, like Ma Rainey's Black Bottom is based off of August Wilson's play. Regina King does a wonderful job and Kemp does a wonderful job of pulling it out into the cinematic world, giving us the setups that we might expect that are dramatic and movie theatrical. And the closeout that's movie theatrical. We don't just stay within the confines of the stage, the sets that a stage performance might be able to pull together for our characters. And in fact, to pull us up historically to speed on these four characters and the conditions that they are in, and conditions of race relations, and how it impacts their fame are established in in opening sequences, which I think are, I won't say best, but are established in the way that a film might establish characters. We're thrust right into action, like you'd expect in the film. The action we're thrust into is Ali's fight that precedes the One Night in Miami fight. So you're getting the ascension of Muhammad Ali, that he's on the cusp, and his brashness and his motor mouth both is creating both his fame and his attention, but also the negative attention and the focus that's being placed upon him about whether how serious he is about the game, about what kind of a spokesperson he might be for the sport, and from an action perspective, it puts him at risk at the opening sequence when he takes a shot to the jaw and is knocked into the ropes, and they start to count out. So it rolls into and pulls you into the backstories of these characters in an exciting and compelling way that you expect from a motion picture that maybe you wouldn't necessarily be expecting from a stage play about four persons talking. So when the play came out, I didn't know that it was real. I thought, wow, this is an excellent pulling together. There are other plays out there that are fictionalized conversations between historic African American people at pivotal times to do what if they got together and had a conversation. And so the fact that this actually occurred, and folks, you might look up for yourself, or we can provide some links. They show some of the photographs from that night. They show that Malcolm X was a shutterbug, and so we have the photos from his camera, as well as you might imagine, the four of them drew great attention to themselves. And did we cover all four characters that were being played in Who By yet? Because if not, I think it's important maybe to.
Very much so. Yeah, no, we did not do that. The character of Malcolm X is being played by Kingsley Ben-Adir, who's been coming up. He was becoming very famous in Bridgerton. Actually, let me start with Cassius Clay. Actually, Eli Goree is playing Goree or Goree. I'm not too sure how to pronounce his last name.
I think he goes by Goree. Eli Goree plays Cassius Clay and amazingly well. Eli Goree, in fact, as a practical matter, all four of these characters fully embody the characters that they are trying to portray. If you look up if you think of them in their previous roles or current roles they're in now, they don't look anything like it. Eli Goree has a much more baby face, and he just takes all aspects of the soon-to-become Muhammad Ali. The story begins on the cusp of Cassius Clay's ascension, and it's critical to the story that he's about to become Muhammad Ali under the spiritual guidance of Malcolm X. Now, I knew that was true. I just had no idea that these four African Americans at the forefront of popular culture in America and in African American history knew each other and actually hung out that historic night when Ali beats Sonny Liston and becomes the heavyweight champion of the world. The other character is Aldous Hodge, and Aldous Hodge plays Jim Brown. And again, even as these actors in any other roles don't look like these historic characters, they so well portrayed them and covered their mannerisms and the way that they speak that it's an uncanny likeness for Aldous Hodge as Jim Brown. And of course, Leslie Odom Jr., if your household is anything like my household, his songs are being sung over and over and over again, the parts that he played in Hamilton. And so he does a full transformation from Aaron Burr, sir, to Sam Cooke. It's just phenomenal.
It is a complete acting powerhouse as far as I'm concerned. And as you mentioned, people may not exactly necessarily look like the historical figures, but their performances completely embody who they are. You completely buy who they are, and they're given a lot of room and real estate in which to do this. And
right.
I did not feel, take it, I don't know everyone's history, but I did not feel a false note in terms of who they were portraying, the characters, the people they were portraying in this. And you mentioned that it seemed play-like. To me, it actually seemed more natural than a play. I mean, usually when there's a play, the film adaptation, you know that there's going to be possibly some set pieces or whatever. This to me felt so natural that I honestly didn't even necessarily feel that there was, a play element in there. I just think that they have done, such a great job of capturing who these characters were and just bringing out the humanity of these people if they were in this situation, that I was completely sold. And I also want to comment on the way that, just my opinion of how Regina King directed it. I think actually she did something which was absolutely amazing, in which, and it's a very hard skill very few people have, is basically sort of in a way keeping the director manipulating the story, keeping invisible. That is an absolute priceless skill. I'm just, an example of this. I don't know if in probably, well, I keep thinking about in the beginning where you have Sam Cooke's talking, you know, at the Copacabana, all right? The Copacabana thing that rings in my head, and it may ring into other people's head, is that the Copacabana is a nightclub that they had in the mob movie Goodfellas. And the Copacabana sequence in Goodfellas is one of its big cinematic tour de force where you follow Henry Hill and the wife. They give them, they park the car, they give the money to the valet, and you get a steady cam shot where they're walking from the car, back through the back door, down the basement area, through the kitchen, till they get a place set up for them in the Copacabana. And the reason I thought about this was because, you know, it is definitely sort of like a signature type of sequence that one would see in a Martin Scorsese movie. And it has his name written all over it, and it's great. And we celebrate it because of that. We love Martin Scorsese movies. In One Night in Miami, the Copacabana is you know, basically Sam Cooke being placed in a situation where everything is completely going wrong for him. And it is done in a way that is so natural. It's not a matter of, oh, let's see what we could do in terms of playing with this nightclub scene. It is done you know, completely naturally. And the story is the fact that this guy has a #1 hit song. This is his first time playing at this pretty much exclusive white or, you know, Italian American club, basically, where, you know, we have a bunch of mobsters there. So he's sort of, in a way, sort of like going into a little bit of enemy territory. The manager of the club is trying to sort of bargain him down. His manager is you know, he decides that he's going to perform anyway. And anything wrong that could happen in that show sort of does happen in the show. And so just letting things naturally happen and letting Leslie Odom Jr. carry sort of like what was happening there. Right. To me was just like, you know, just again, a complete opposite. And right. But to me, just more effective in terms of what did this character have to deal with. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and King does that masterfully. Let's just, you know, cover Regina King. You know, we've covered her in our previous review of Watchmen, the TV series. She is the queen of all she surveys, and she certainly is dominating. You know, she's certainly dominating all that is television. And since technically this is a dual release, it'll be curious to see how she and the other cast members move their way closer toward an EGOT, because are they going to give her an Oscar or an Emmy or both for this for this Prime Video simultaneous release?
Amazon Prime.
Yeah, Amazon, thank you. Amazon Prime, thank you, video release, because she's dominating all things on screen, and she's just really, really showing her talent. So again, yeah, that's a standout. That you know, taking a play, taking a scene, as you mentioned, and making it be in its place where it belongs relative to the story we're trying to say, because all that was in the opening. It's the setup of the condition of our characters are in. And each one of our characters are on some kind of cusp. And there's something, you know, that they are perhaps, I won't say at the top of their game, but they are on the come up and the rise. They're on a cusp already. They're already in the forefront, and they're at their maximum peak of their talent. But something about America is standing in their way. Mm-hmm. Malcolm X is known. Malcolm X is understood. He's a leader in the Nation of Islam. It opens with him on television. So the idea is, well, just on television making great speech, things must be going well for you, but they're not. And things are not going his way. And he's betting on a change. He's betting on a significant change that's about to happen. Jim Brown is rolling in the South in the big old convertible with the music playing. You know, I started to get a little nervous. I'm like, you know, this is a historic film. Is he going to get pulled over and someone's mess with him? I mean, you know, he's this big black man. He got this giant convertible Cadillac. He's cranking his tunes. I hope the whole time I'm wishing as he's going down the road, well, I just hope he'll run into nobody. If things work out well, the road will be so lonely that no one will run into him, and therefore no one will mess with him. Yeah. And things will turn out all right. That's when I'm thinking that whole scene. And then he shows up at a big old plantation style house. And he's brought into, and this is important, he's brought into the screened in porch of this big old house. This plantation house is so big, and apparently they're so rich that they've actually screened in the porch, which I don't think I've ever seen. The screen in the whole porch, all 27, 30 feet tall, 300 feet wide. It's all screened in with a net, right? So therefore, you got to come through a door to get onto the porch. And he does do that. He comes into and it's it's the South, so it's warm outside, it's comfortable, and not the lady of the house, I guess the niece or the daughter of the house comes running out, shaking his hand, and happy to see him, and he's super polite and everything, but he's grown, he's not a child, and we find out more about what stage is he in his life. Well, then the gentleman in the house, he's older, so a person that's maybe Jim Brown's dad's age. Remember, someone from the community. Remember someone from the back of the day. Obviously, a rich and prominent person in the community because of the side of his house. And this guy's just loading praises on him. Apparently, he called for Jim Brown. Word was out on the street. Word was out in the countryside that this prominent leader wanted to see Brown. So on his way, presumably to the fight, keep on driving. He's driving through his local town. He's going to keep on going to the fight. But on his way, he's going to stop by and pay his respects to this prominent person from the community where he grew up. And the guy was just loading praises on him and sent his niece to go running, or his daughter to go run to go get some lemonade so they could set a spell and drink some lemonade out on the porch. And everything was going great. And this guy was loading praise upon him and saying, hey, well, don't worry about the other people in the community, Jim Brown, because, you can count on me to have your back. But it closes. But that sequence does not end that well. And it closes in a way that's just for such a big, powerful, strong, physically strong, athletic hero, Jim Brown, could only just be crushed by it. You can just you see the expression on his face. It ends in a way that he had been elevated and now he's deflated. So that was your setup to say that all four of them were on a cusp. Ali is on his way up and running his mouth and gets knocked to the deck and is being counted out as his opening sequence opens. Sam Cooke is in the dream place to make the performance, his crossover performance. He knows he's recognizing he's making a crossover here. He's going pop by playing the Copacabana. That maybe he can be accepted in popular culture, and he pans. Jim Brown thought he can come home and is being summoned by a prominent leader in the South, only to be only to be crushed to find out that his fame and celebrity, because he's now at a point where he's achieved now. He's broken a record for rushing yards. He's at a peak of his career. He's achieved a high mark. Perhaps he could play a couple of more years, perhaps, to get a few more team-based accomplishments, but his individual accomplishments are at the highest.
They're at the highest, and just knowing that for professional football, every time they play a season, they basically age their body anywhere from 3 to 5 years, and he sort of sees that, I've done everything I could. I've made this record. He could do it for a little longer, but he's eyeing just in terms of, he's on the precipice of, I need to do something bigger, something bigger that I want to do. And
so all of that brings us forward to this big event where, again, you can't help kind of get drawn into the excitement. Like, really? Seriously? Malcolm X, Jim Brown, Sam Cooke, and Muhammad Ali, they know each other? And they're going to hang out after this fight. And Ali's staying at the Black Hotel. So it's full of beautiful Black people who can afford to stay in that hotel and are hanging around the champ. And surely there's going to, even as much as Ali is the upstart, right? Liston is still the champ. And if Liston won, Liston would be having all the parties. For context, for those who know, Sonny Liston was black and the champ. And surely there would have been celebrations one way or the other.
Yeah.
Everyone wasn't there expecting the brash, loudmouth, up and comer Ali to win it all. So that's our setting.
Yeah, and not only you see a big physical brawler, but also the fact that he's seen also as a real good Christian boy, and that adds to tensions later on. In terms of when Ali is about to go into Islam, but he's sort of seen as the favorite among boxing fans, especially among white boxing fans also, and so that adds a little more. Yeah,
Ali makes it clear
he's going to be able to knock the brash, arrogant one out.
Correct.
He needs to be humbled.
He needs to be humbled. He needs to be put into his place in sport, and the film opens that way. Right, yes. The film opens that way because he's I guess he's in Great Britain, and so two white British telecasters are speaking to the very point that sure Ali has a lot of talent, but someone should put him in his place to get him more aligned with the gentle sport. So that's our setup, and it's quite a setup. If you weren't aware of these four characters, in my case, I guess I didn't have all four on equal footing, to be honest with you. I know of Sam Cooke. I know of the famous songs of Sam Cooke, but I did not have him on the same kind of setting from a celebrity perspective and an impact perspective. I didn't know. Jim Brown, who is the only of the four still living with us now, Jim Brown, of course, has been in and out of the public eye almost continuously for certainly his entire sports career. So the sound of Jim Brown's voice. Just about anyone knows the sound of Jim Brown's voice, and you've seen him. Even if you didn't live to see him play football, and his records have lasted such a long time. His dominance in football and his significance in football has made such an impression that he's been around, so kind of where he is. And then Ali, of course, and Malcolm X, their international reputation over time is just unparalleled. So for this film, to have all four of these individuals really giving their point of view of what it's like at that moment in time to be four black men of this level. It was good from a historical perspective just to put all of that in place for myself and for any audience that's watching it now, right? I think of some of our other reviews that we've been doing, which happens at the time that we're giving this recording to you all. It is February. It is the American History Month, known as Black History Month. And, we reviewed Judas and the Black Messiah. And please check out our review of that. At that time, I told you I thought of that as a superhero story, except a real a super historical story. And so for this to be one based off of, very significant African-American characters that really occurred was exciting. And it's exciting and should compel you to, definitely rush out and see it.
Yeah, I could definitely say that this has been absolutely, at least the last few years have been, just absolutely amazing in terms of Black talent getting to tell our stories. Like you mentioned, we had Judas in the Black Messiah last week. We had this week. It's almost honestly as if there is some type of cinematic activism that's happening in terms of us getting to these, more stories about ourselves. A couple of years ago, you had Human Figures, about Black women in the NASA program.
Yep, hidden figures.
So yes, and it's just, so this is, I'm saying these young filmmakers who are coming out, again, I have a big thank you letter in terms of, thank you for getting more of more important stories that are out there.
Correct.
And take it. I know that this story is supposed to be sort of like a fictional meaning, but the history behind it is is accurate. So
and the messages around them are significant.
extremely.
So as they are facing these things, these challenges, the messages still ring true today. We said that about Judas and the Black Messiah. And I don't want to redo our review. Watch it, the show, and then watch the film. But what I wanted to point out, though, is that, again, not having known that much about Sam Cooke, it's compelling to me that as you watch this, it's an ensemble cast, but the story immediately moves the story becomes very focused on the relationship of Malcolm X and Sam Cooke. Even as most people know that the relationship of Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali, and you're thinking that since this movie begins with him as Cassius Clay, and it projects that it's going to end with him as Muhammad Ali, that's going to be the most of the cross pairings of conversations and character building in this film, but it is not. Sam Cooke, the one that I knew least about, is actually perhaps one of the most significant of the film's thrust about what was being discussed between the four of them as they were challenging themselves to be to make it through these changes that are happening in their lives and to go forward and be their best selves. Well, that message to Sam Cooke was maybe one of the most significant ones then, and could be one of the most significant ones going forward. As Malcolm X chides not just Muhammad Ali. In fact, it turns out Muhammad Ali ends up teaching Malcolm X a lesson and saying, "Hey, I know what I'm doing. This brash, talkative, trying to make myself the enemy because I talk too much is my way of ascending. It is my style of bringing myself forward and making myself the celebrity that I want to be. That I'm going to be loved or hated, but I'm going to be watched. That I'm going to be the one on top."
Yeah, and each of these characters have their own, they have their own way in terms of how they navigated around, what was happening around that time. All right, sure. And Malcolm X, for the most part, was bringing other people to task, but then the characters also, challenged him. On the surface, you're thinking, oh, well, who can argue with Malcolm X? He was like, well, they could, because they sort of point out, kinks in his armor, kinks sure. in his thinking. He's there, accusing other people, but then somebody brings out, characters bring out, other arguments, other points in terms of how they are in their ways contributing or adapting to the situation and taking control of their life.
And they knew him well. They genuinely were his friends, and they knew him well from back in the day. Yeah. So, read the autobiography of Malcolm X. It is February at the time of our recording. Whenever you're reading this, it's Black History Month. Whenever you watch this video that Claude and I are playing for you, it's always time for Black History Month. If you read,
it's always Black History. It should be Black History every day. So
that's correct. So read the autobiography of Malcolm X, and it helps put in perspective that these friends of his, they know what his history is. So they're not just allowing themselves to be lectured by the eloquent and excellent speaker of Malcolm X. They push back. Yeah. Right. They challenge back.
They call him out on his stuff. And right. And it comes in, they talk, you have the intensity, the passion. And again, the humanity is really what came out through all of this in terms of all the characters, but they talk the way friends would talk. They would just talk about issues the way you would talk about them with issues. They get into arguments. And then they also make up the way their friends would, I completely solidly felt the whole night. And again, it was just a matter of it being, just being natural, knowing, and I'm going back to the director, Regina King. She's had a very long career as an actor, and she had, definitely knows how to deal with the actors out on the other side of the on the other side of in terms of directing them.
So one night in Miami.
This to me was just masterful job. Not one, I didn't find an awkward moment anytime. I didn't feel like, oh, this is going to be, we have to get, you're anticipating that they'll talk about certain points, We definitely don't have one of those message moments that sometimes creep up. We don't have this, oh, we need to build up to this. I think there were a couple of things that one may have anticipated, but it felt so natural that it did not stop the story and make you say, okay, oh, this is what's going to happen now. And the editing, the writing, I mean, it is just honestly just amazing work. Just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's really great. Again, to have for us to cover again a fictionalized retelling of an actual event in a historic time period. So again, to watch something that's history that's compelling and engaging, and I didn't know that in a way that pulls you in, both from I didn't know that about Sam Cooke, but also I didn't know how important he was, because Malcolm X now is telling us. Whoa, well, I guess I'm paying attention if Malcolm X is going to be telling us how important Sam Cooke is. Really? Who knew? Right? And four brothers having a conversation is great. We want all those stories told. But let's take it up 10 notches and say that it's not just four brothers who are friends, which we've had some excellent black films like that, and I want more, right? The brothers, that four brothers who like, it takes up a whole other notch when they might come to fisticuffs, and it's Jim Brown and Muhammad Ali involved, and by any means necessary Malcolm X. I don't know what Sam Cooke's going to do. He's going to have to swing his guitar. I don't know how scrappy he is. They didn't cover that, but he's willing to scrap. I don't know how much he can back it up, but it takes it up a whole nother notch. That is, in fact, about true heroes.
And I just also wanted to say that also, I mean, those of you who know the history of what happens, a little afterwards, the way that they sort of drop little seeds in terms of how each of the characters, contributed to one another. It just makes the ending that definitely a more powerful,
Yes.
Just sort of, I don't want to give away too much. I don't want to give away the magic, but right. It's more than transformation. It's beyond. It's transformation and then an extra kick. I mean, extra kick,
which makes you want to know.
I'll probably come back to this after, if people want to know what I'm talking about, but this. Yeah, I'm just basically going to say I give this if we're going to get ready to sum it up, I'm going to give this a top rating. Jeff and I have been thinking of a rating system that we're going to incorporate. We're going to use the black. I give this I give this four Black Power signs, 4 fist up. 4 is the highest number. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to see, because if there was a way to make the movie any better, I definitely didn't see it. And just again, hats off to the cast. Hats off to Kemp Powers for writing this amazing play and screenplay. And again, Regina King, you're absolute boss director. This is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I have to agree. All of these things come together, both the content, the context, and how well it's shot, and the performances are delivered by these 4 great actors, that it really does draw you in and makes you want to ask, what happened one night in Miami? And so that's our review. What's my rating? I'm giving it 4 fists as well. 4 out of 4. One Night in Miami. It's in theaters and limited release and streaming on Amazon Prime. That's what we think. We're your movie review men. I'm Jeff Johnson.
I'm Claude here.
Join the conversation. Like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think. And we'll see you next time.